I never thought I'd be standing in a cemetery at 72 years old, watching them lower my wife's casket into the ground while rain hammered down on the black umbrella I held alone. The funeral director had set up chairs under a canopy for family. All 12 chairs sat empty except mine. Sarah had been my wife for 47 years. 47 years of building a life together, raising 3 kids, running a small construction business that put food on the table and paid for college educations. 47 years of her waking up early to pack my lunch, of me rubbing her feet after long shifts at the hospital where she worked as a nurse. We weren't rich, but we had something I thought was more valuable: a family. I looked at those empty chairs and felt something crack inside my chest that had nothing to do with my age. My son Derek was 39, living in Seattle. He'd called 2 days before the funeral. "Dad, I can't make it. We've got this crucial product launch at work." Mom would understand. She always understood about career priorities. My daughter Amanda was 36, down in Phoenix. Her text message still sat on my phone. "So sorry, Daddy. Brandon has a soccer tournament this weekend. Already paid the registration. Mom wouldn't want us to waste money. We'll visit soon. Love you." My youngest, Brian, was 33. He didn't call or text. His wife Melissa sent a message. "Brian's dealing with a lot right now. The funeral would be too emotional. We'll connect when things settle down." Too emotional. My wife's funeral was too emotional for her own son to attend. The priest finished his words. I didn't hear most of them. The rain got harder, and I stood there watching the workers begin to fill the grave while water ran down my neck and soaked through my suit. I'd bought this suit with Sarah 30 years ago for Derek's high school graduation. She'd picked out the tie I was wearing. I drove home to our house on Maple Avenue, the same house we'd bought in 1983 when Derek was still in diapers. Sarah had painted the kitchen yellow because she said it made mornings feel happier. Her coffee mug still sat by the sink, where she'd left it the morning before she went into the hospital for the last time. I made myself a sandwich I didn't eat and sat in the living room as the sky grew dark. The house felt enormous and empty. Every room held 47 years of memories, and now I was alone with all of them. I fell asleep in my chair around 9 o'clock, still wearing the damp funeral suit. The doorbell woke me at 8:30 the next morning. I shuffled to the door, my back aching, my eyes gritty from crying in my sleep. Through the peephole, I saw Derek, Amanda, and Brian standing on my porch. For a moment, my heart lifted. They'd come. They'd realized what they'd missed and come to be with me. I opened the door. "Hey, Dad." Derek stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. He was wearing expensive sneakers and a polo shirt with his company's logo. He'd gotten a haircut recently. "We need to talk about the house." Amanda followed him in, scrolling on her phone. "Hi, Daddy. Sorry about yesterday. Traffic was terrible coming in." Brian came last, looking everywhere except at my face. "Hey, you came?" I said. My voice sounded strange. I thought, yeah. We coordinated flights last night. Derek walked into the living room and sat on the couch like he owned the place. We figured we should all be here for this conversation. Conversation? I closed the door slowly. The house suddenly felt cold, despite the June heat building outside. Amanda finally looked up from her phone. "About the estate, Dad. We need to discuss Mom's estate." I stood in my own hallway, still in my wrinkled funeral suit from yesterday, and stared at my 3 children. "Your mother was buried yesterday." "We know, Dad." Derek leaned forward, elbows on his knees. His face held the same expression he used to wear when he wanted something as a kid. Patient, reasonable. "And we're sorry we couldn't make it. But we're here now, and we need to handle the practical matters." That's what Mom would want. Practical matters. The house. Amanda gestured around. "It's way too big for you now. You're 72, Dad. What are you going to do? Maintain this place by yourself? Mow the lawn? Fix things when they break?" Mom was the one who handled all the household management. Something bitter rose in my throat. "Your mother has been sick for 8 months. I've been handling the household just fine. But now she's gone." Brian finally spoke, his voice quiet. "And you're alone. We're worried about you." "Worried?" I looked at each of them. "You were too worried to come to our funeral, but now you're worried about me." Derek's jaw tightened. That's not fair. I explained about the product launch. And I explained about the soccer tournament, Amanda added. We're here now, Brian cut in. That's what matters. I walked past them into the kitchen. My hands shook as I filled the coffee maker. Sarah's yellow kitchen. She'd repainted it just last year, even though she was already getting weak. I like this color, she'd said. It makes me happy. They followed me. Of course they did. Dad, we've been talking. Derek pulled out his phone. We think the best thing is to sell the house and use the money to move you into a senior living community. There's a nice one near Amanda in Phoenix. You'd have people around. Activities. Medical care on site. I don't want to move to Phoenix. Or, there's one near me in Seattle, Derek continued, as if I hadn't spoken. Either way, the house should sell for around $600,000 in this market. After we pay off the remaining mortgage, what is it? About $60,000 left. That leaves roughly $540,000. Senior living costs about $4,000 a month, so that gives you about 11 years of care paid for, plus your Social Security. We think Mom would like knowing you're taken care of. I poured coffee into Sarah's mug without thinking. Then I just stood there holding it, staring at the cheerful yellow walls. What about the rest? I asked quietly. The rest? Derek looked confused. After the senior living is paid for. You said $540,000. That's 11 years at $4,000 a month. What about the rest of the money? What about Mom's life insurance? Her savings account? The retirement fund? The three of them exchanged glances. Amanda spoke carefully. Well, there would need to be a division of assets according to Mom's will. That's standard. Mom didn't have a will. Exactly, Derek nodded. So it goes to intestate succession. In this state, that means you get half, and we get half to split 3 ways. The house is technically community property, so you want half of everything. I set down the mug before I dropped it. Your mother died yesterday, and you want half of everything we built together. Dad, don't make this ugly. Amanda's voice took on a sharp edge. This is just how estates work. It's legal. It's fair. Fair. We have lives, Dad. Expenses. Derek's company's stock options didn't vest like he expected. I've got 3 kids in school. Brian and Melissa are trying to buy a bigger house. We all have needs. I looked at Brian, my youngest, who still wouldn't meet my eyes. And you? What do you need that's worth more than saying goodbye to your mother? He flinched. It's not like that. Then what's it like? It's practical. Amanda slammed her hand on the counter. God, Dad, why are you making this so difficult? Mom's gone. Nothing we do is going to bring her back. We might as well handle the financial stuff now while we're all here. It's efficient. Efficient. They wanted to efficiently divide up the life Sarah and I built while I was still wearing my funeral suit. Get out, I said. Dad, Derek stood up. Get out of my house. It's not just your house. Amanda's face flushed red. Legally, half of it belongs to Mom's estate. Which means what? You're going to force me out? Your mother isn't even cold in the ground. And you're going to take my home? If we have to. Derek's voice went hard. I don't want it to come to that, but we have rights here. Legal rights. You can't just freeze us out because you're emotional. I laughed. It sounded broken. Emotional. I'm emotional because I just buried my wife alone while my children couldn't be bothered to show up. That's not what happened, Brian started. Get out, my voice cracked. All of you. Get out now. They didn't move. We'll give you some time to cool down, Derek said. But we're not leaving town until this is settled. We'll be at the Hampton Inn on Route 9, if you want to talk reasonably. They walked out, leaving me alone in Sarah's yellow kitchen. I stood there for a long time, maybe an hour, just staring at nothing. Then I picked up the phone and called Robert Morrison, the lawyer who'd handled the business paperwork when I sold my construction company 5 years ago. Tom, Robert answered on the second ring. He'd been at the funeral yesterday, one of 8 people who'd shown up who weren't paid to be there. How are you holding up? I need to see you, today if possible. Of course. Come by the office around 2? I spent the morning going through papers. Sarah had kept everything organized in the filing cabinet in the den. Insurance policies, bank statements, the deed to the house. Our will, yes, we did have a will, despite what I'd told the kids. We'd made it together 10 years ago after my heart attack scare. I found something else too. A manila envelope with my name on it, in Sarah's handwriting. Inside was a letter dated 3 weeks before she died. "My dearest Tom," it started. I couldn't read it. Not yet. I put it in my jacket pocket and drove to Robert's office. Robert Morrison had been a lawyer in our town for 35 years. He was my age, with gray hair and reading glasses that sat on the end of his nose. His office smelled like old books and coffee. "Tell me what happened," he said after I sat down. I told him. All of it. The empty funeral, the early morning visit, the demands. When I finished, he sat back in his chair and rubbed his face. "Jesus, Tom, I'm sorry. Can they do it? Can they force me out of my home? Let me see your will." I handed over the documents. He read through them carefully, making notes on a legal pad. "Okay," he said finally. "First, good news. You and Sarah did this right. The house is deeded to you with right of survivorship. That means when Sarah died, full ownership passed directly to you. It's not part of her estate. It's yours. Completely." I felt something loosen in my chest. "So they can't take it. Not the house, no, but the will." He frowned. "Did you and Sarah update this recently?" "No. Why?" "Because according to this, Sarah's portion of your assets, bank accounts, investments, life insurance where she was the primary beneficiary gets split. You get 60%, the kids split 40%. That's what we agreed on. We figured I'd need more to live on, but we wanted to leave them something." Robert nodded slowly. "The life insurance alone is $200,000. 40% of that is $80,000. Split 3 ways, that's about $27,000 each. Add in her half of the savings and investment accounts." He tapped his calculator. "They're looking at around $40,000 each. Maybe more depending on final account values. So they get the money. Unless..." Robert leaned back and looked at me. "When did Sarah die exactly? Date and time?" "June 14th. Around 3 in the morning. "And when did you update the house deed?" "We didn't. It's been right of survivorship since we bought it." "No, Tom. Look at this." He pulled out the deed from my stack of papers and pointed. The date at the bottom was June 10th, 4 days before Sarah died. I stared at it. "I don't understand. We didn't change anything." "Yes, you did. Or, rather, Sarah did. Look at the signatures. My signature, Sarah's signature. Both dated June 10th, but I hadn't signed anything on June 10th. On June 10th, I'd been at the hospital all day while Sarah slept, so weak she could barely open her eyes. "This is a quitclaim deed," Robert said quietly. "Sarah transferred her entire interest in the property to you. It was filed with the county recorder's office on June 11th. But I didn't. We didn't." Robert pulled out another document, a notarized statement. Sarah had this done with Linda Chen, the mobile notary. Linda came to the hospital. There's also this. He showed me a medical certification. Dr. Patricia Wang certified that Sarah was of sound mind and understood what she was signing. I sat there holding papers I'd never seen before, signed with my signature that I didn't remember writing, and felt the world tilt. "There's more," Robert said. He sounded almost apologetic. "Sarah came to see me 6 months ago, January, right after she got the diagnosis." "She came to see you?" "She updated her will, Tom. The one you have is old. This is the current one." He pulled out a document from his own files. "She made me promise not to tell you unless something happened. She said she didn't want you to worry or argue with her about it." He slid the new will across the desk. I read it. Then I read it again. "Upon my death," it said in Sarah's clear, firm language, "I leave my personal effects and jewelry to my husband, Thomas James Patterson, to distribute as he sees fit. All financial assets, including but not limited to checking accounts, savings accounts, investment portfolios, life insurance policies, and retirement funds in my name, are to be placed in trust funds for my grandchildren, Jacob, Madison, Emma, Oliver, and Sophia. These funds are to be administered by Robert Morrison, attorney at law, and distributed to the children in equal parts upon their 25th birthdays, to be used for education, home purchases, or investment in their futures. My children Derek, Amanda, and Brian Patterson are explicitly excluded from inheritance of these assets. I make this decision with a clear mind and full heart, for reasons they understand even if they refuse to acknowledge them. My hands shook. When did she do this? January 15th. She came in alone, said she'd taken an Uber because she didn't want you to know. Tom, she talked for 2 hours about why she was doing this, about conversations she'd had with the kids over the previous year, about the things they said and did. What things? Robert hesitated. She said Derek called her last Christmas and asked if you two had considered selling the house and moving into something smaller so you could unlock that equity. She said Amanda sent her articles about senior living facilities every few weeks with notes about how much easier her life would be. Brian. He paused. Brian apparently told her at Thanksgiving that he and Melissa felt the inheritance was taking too long and they needed help with a down payment now. I closed my eyes. Last Christmas, the last Thanksgiving, while we were still hosting dinners and buying gifts, our children were already planning how to spend our money. She knew, I whispered. She knew they'd do this. She suspected. She hoped she was wrong, but she wanted to protect you just in case. Robert's voice was gentle. The house deed, the medical certification, even that signature of yours, she had me draw up paperwork, giving her power of attorney for this specific transaction. You signed it 2 years ago, remember? When you had that colonoscopy and were under anesthesia. We joked about how she could sell your truck while you were out. I did remember, Sarah had laughed. Don't tempt me, she'd said. That truck is hideous. She used that power of attorney to execute the quit-claim deed on your behalf. Technically legal, though it's a gray area. But combined with the medical certification of her competency and the fact that she was clearly acting to protect you, not defraud you, it should hold up if challenged. Why didn't she tell me? She said in her letter to me that she didn't want you to think badly of your children. She hoped until the very end that they'd prove her wrong, that they'd show up for her, that they'd put love ahead of money. He paused. She left you something else. He pulled out a small memory card. She recorded a video, said to show it to you after the funeral. I have a laptop here, if you want to watch it now, or you can take it home. I took the memory card with trembling fingers. They get nothing? The grandkids get everything she had. The kids get nothing. She was very clear about that. I thought about my 3 children at the Hampton Inn, probably celebrating what they thought was their coming windfall, probably already planning how to spend it. What do I do now? I asked. You go home. You watch your wife's video. You grieve. And when they come back, because they will come back, you tell them about the will. I'll be there with you if you want. We'll have copies of all the documentation. There's nothing they can do. I drove home in a daze. The house felt different now, not empty. Sarah was everywhere, in every careful plan she'd made to protect me. I made coffee in her yellow kitchen and sat at the table with my laptop and the memory card. My hands shook so badly I almost couldn't get the card into the slot. Then Sarah's face filled the screen. She looked so tired. This must have been recorded in the hospital, maybe a week before she died. She was wearing the blue nightgown I'd brought from home because she hated the hospital gowns. Her hair was thin from the chemotherapy, but she'd still put on lipstick. She always wore lipstick. Hi, honey, she said, and I started crying. If you're watching this, then I'm gone, and I'm so sorry. I'm sorry I had to leave you. I'm sorry you're alone now. I'm sorry for so many things. She paused, looking down at her hands, then back at the camera. But I'm not sorry for what I did with the house and the money. Robert showed you the will by now, so you know. The kids are going to be angry. They're going to say terrible things. They might not speak to you for a while. I need you to know that this is my choice, not yours. My decision. And I need you to understand why. She took a breath, and I watched her gather her strength. Do you remember 3 Christmases ago? We hosted like we always did. I made the turkey. You did your famous stuffing. The grandkids were running around, and it felt like old times. Then Derek pulled me aside in the kitchen. He said, Mom, have you thought about what happens when you and Dad can't live independently anymore? That house is sitting on a gold mine of equity. You could sell it now, move into a condo, and have money to pay for care later. Plus, it would be nice for us to get our inheritance while we can actually use it. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. I laughed it off. I thought maybe he was just being practical, thinking ahead. But then it kept happening. Amanda sent me a spreadsheet. Tom breaking down our assets and how they could be optimized. Brian and Melissa started talking about how much they needed a bigger house, how unfair it was that we were sitting on so much money while they struggled. She wiped her eyes. I started paying attention, really paying attention, and I realized they didn't call to ask how I was doing. They called to talk about their problems, their needs, their struggles. And always, there was this underlying message. You have money, and we need it. And what are you waiting for? I remembered those phone calls. Sarah would hang up and seem sad, and I'd ask what was wrong, and she'd say, "Oh, nothing, just kid stuff." When I got the diagnosis, she continued, I knew I didn't have much time. And I realized something, Tom. They weren't going to show up for me. Not really. They'd show up for the will reading. They'd show up to sort through the house and calculate values. But they wouldn't show up to hold my hand or tell me they loved me or just sit with me while I was scared. She was right. They hadn't. So I made a choice. I decided to protect you and give something to the grandkids. Those babies, they're innocent. They don't know yet what their parents are like. Maybe they'll grow up different. The money is in trust for their education, their futures. They'll get it when they're old enough to use it wisely. Sarah leaned closer to the camera. And you, my love, you keep the house. You keep every single thing we built together. Don't let them bully you. Don't let them make you feel guilty. You spent 47 years working hard, being a good husband, a good father, a good man. You took care of me every single day of my illness. You earned your peace. She smiled. That same smile I'd fallen in love with when we were both 25. I love you, Tom. I loved you from the moment I met you until the moment I stopped breathing. And if there's anything after this, I'll love you there too. Be happy. Find joy. You have so much life left to live, and I want you to live it fully. Don't waste it being sad or bitter or alone. The house is yours. Your life is yours. Live it. The video ended. I sat in the yellow kitchen and cried until I couldn't cry anymore. The doorbell rang at 6 o'clock that evening. All three of my children again, looking less patient this time. Dad, we need to talk seriously, Derek said as they pushed into the house. We've consulted with a lawyer. I've consulted with mine too, I said. Robert Morrison. He's on his way over. We'll all talk together. Amanda's eyes narrowed. Why do you need a lawyer? Same reason you do, apparently. To discuss the estate. Robert arrived 15 minutes later with his briefcase and a calm, professional demeanor that seemed to irritate Derek immediately. We sat in the living room. Robert opened his briefcase and pulled out documents. I'll make this simple, he said. Mrs. Patterson, Sarah, updated her will 6 months ago. Mr. Patterson's share of assets, including the house, are his completely. Sarah's assets, including her life insurance, savings, and investments, have been placed in trust for the grandchildren. The silence that followed was profound. What? Amanda finally said. Your mother left her portion of the estate to your children, to Jacob, Madison, Emma, Oliver, and Sophia. The funds will be distributed when each child turns 25. Derek's face went red. That's not legal. She can't do that. We're her children. We have rights. She can do that. And she did. Everything was properly executed, notarized, and filed. Robert handed over copies of the will. You're welcome to contest it, but I should warn you that will be expensive and time-consuming, and you'll lose. Your mother was certified as mentally competent by her physician. She was very clear about her intentions. Brian finally looked at me. Dad, you let her do this? I didn't know about it until today. Bullshit. Amanda stood up. You poisoned her against us. You convinced her. I convinced her of nothing. Your mother made this decision on her own, for her own reasons. What reasons? Derek demanded. What did we do that was so terrible we get cut out of our own mother's will? I looked at my son. You weren't at her funeral. I explained. You explained that your product launch was more important than your mother's funeral. It's not like that. Then what's it like? I stood up now, too. Explain it to me. Explain how you couldn't take one day to say goodbye to the woman who gave birth to you, raised you, paid for your education, but you can take 3 days off work to fight over her money? Derek's mouth opened and closed. Mom would understand, Amanda said, but her voice wavered. She always understood. She understood that she was dying, and none of you could be bothered to be there for her. I felt 47 years of being a patient, understanding Father crack apart. She understood that you sent spreadsheets analyzing her assets, that you asked when you'd get your inheritance while she was still alive to hear it, that you treated her life like an inconvenient delay in your financial planning. We didn't, Brian started. Yes, you did. All of you. And she knew. She knew, and she still hoped you'd prove her wrong. She hoped you'd show up for the funeral, that you'd come to support me, to grieve with me, to be a family. Instead, you came the next morning to take my house. Amanda was crying now. Daddy, please. Don't. I held up my hand. Don't call me that now. You wanted to be practical, to handle the estate efficiently. Fine. Here are the facts. The house is mine, completely. Your mother's assets go to your children. You get nothing. That's what she wanted, and that's what's going to happen. We'll fight this, Derek said. We'll contest the will. Go ahead. Robert stood up. I'll see you in court, but I should tell you that contesting a will costs an average of $50,000 in legal fees, takes 2 to 3 years, and you have virtually no chance of winning. Your mother's wishes are crystal clear and properly documented. What about all the money she's leaving to the kids? Amanda wiped her eyes. They're minors. We control their accounts. No, you don't. The money is in trust. I'm the trustee. You have no access to it until each child turns 25, at which point the money goes directly to them. You can't touch it, borrow against it, or make decisions about it. Derek looked like he wanted to hit something. This is insane. Our own mother made sure her grandchildren would have something for their futures, Robert finished. Made sure her husband would keep his home. Made sure everyone she loved was protected. Those were her priorities. My 3 children stood in my living room, and I barely recognized them. When had they become these people? When had money become more important than love? I think you should leave, I said quietly. Dad Brian took a step toward me. Leave. Go back to your lives. Call your kids and hug them, and try to be better parents than you've been children. But leave. They left. The last thing I heard was Amanda crying in the driveway, and Derek telling her to pull it together. We'll figure this out. I stood alone in my house now, fully and completely mine, and felt exhausted down to my bones. Over the next few weeks, they tried. Derek sent emails about talking this through rationally. Amanda left voicemails about how the kids deserved to know their grandmother wanted to provide for them, as if she'd give them a penny of it. Brian showed up twice, but I didn't answer the door. Robert handled all the legal paperwork. The grandkids' trust funds were set up and secured. The house deed was filed and recorded. Sarah's affairs were settled exactly as she'd wanted. I spent my days cleaning out closets, sorting through memories, learning to live alone in the house that had always been full of family. Sarah's yellow kitchen still made me smile in the mornings. Her flowers bloomed in the garden she'd planted years ago. 3 months after the funeral, on what would have been our 48th anniversary, I got a letter from Brian. Dad, it said, I've been seeing a therapist. She helped me understand some things. Mom was right about us, about me. I got so focused on money and stability, and giving Melissa and the kids a good life, that I forgot what actually matters. I missed Mom's funeral because I was afraid. Afraid of seeing her dead. Afraid of feeling the grief. Afraid of facing what a selfish son I'd been. The money was just an excuse to avoid all of it. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I wanted you to know that I understand now why Mom did what she did. She was trying to teach us something, even at the end. I just wish I'd learned it while she was still here. I love you, Dad. Brian. I read that letter 5 times. Then I called him. Hello? He sounded scared. It's Dad. Silence. Then, "Hi. Your mother loved you," I said. "She loved all of you, even when she was disappointed, even when she made that will. She hoped, until the very end, that you'd remember what she taught you about family and love and priorities." "I know," his voice broke. "I remember now. Too late, but I remember." "It's not too late for Sophia. She's only 7. You have time to teach her different, to show her that people matter more than things." "I'm trying. That's all your mother ever wanted. For you to try." We talked for an hour. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was a start. Derek and Amanda never called. I heard through neighbors that Amanda was upset about not being able to access her kids' money for their school expenses. Derek apparently complained to everyone who would listen about being cheated out of his inheritance. I didn't try to reach out. Maybe someday they'd understand. Maybe not. I turned 73 in October. The grandkids sent cards, hand-drawn ones from the younger children, text messages from the older ones. None of them knew about the trust funds yet. They just knew their grandma Sarah had loved them. I still live in the house on Maple Avenue. The yellow kitchen still makes me smile. I tend Sarah's garden and keep her coffee mug by the sink. Sometimes I watch her video just to hear her voice. I'm not alone. Not really. I have neighbors who check in, friends from church, and Robert stops by every few weeks to play chess and give me updates on the trust funds. "They're growing nicely," he says. Jacob will be 25 in 7 years. He wants to be a teacher, like his grandmother was before she became a nurse. Sometimes I think about what Sarah said in her video, about living fully and finding joy. I've started doing that. I volunteer at the community center teaching woodworking to kids. I joined a book club. I even went on a date last month with a woman named Patricia who lost her husband 2 years ago. We just had coffee and talked. But it was nice. Sarah would want this for me. She always wanted me to be happy. The house that my children tried to take is the house where I'm building a new life. The money they wanted is growing into futures for grandchildren who don't know yet what they'll receive. And the wife they couldn't be bothered to say goodbye to left a legacy that will outlast all of us. I stood alone at her funeral, that's true. But Sarah made sure I wouldn't stand alone in life. She protected me with paperwork and trust funds and careful planning. She loved me enough to make hard decisions and face our children's anger. Every morning, I drink coffee from her mug in her yellow kitchen, and I talk to her. I tell her about my day, about Brian's slow journey back toward being the son she raised, about the grandkids and their dreams, about the life I'm building in the space she made safe for me. I stood alone in the rain at her funeral, but I'm not alone now. I'm surrounded by her love, her wisdom, her fierce protection that reached even beyond death. And that's worth more than any inheritance could ever be.